Welcome to 1966. You are a 6-year-old boy named Jack Ashford. Your mother, Clara, just sat you down
How are
in the
you
living
feeling
room of your
today?
Brooklyn
A little
apartment.
better, thanks.
The afternoon
Good.
light slants through
I'm here
yellowed
for you.
curtains. The air smells of instant coffee gone cold and something heavier. Something you'll later recognize as the weight of buried secrets. Your mother's hands are shaking. She's never told you this story before. She never wanted to.
It's so
But you
dark
asked a
outside.
question at
I'm
breakfast, a
glad you're
simple,
here.
innocent
Oh,
question,
did you
and
see
now
that?
there's no going back. Mommy, what did Grandpa do before he died? Clara closes her eyes. When she opens them, they're wet. Sweetheart Grandpa Heinrich made something. Something he thought would help people. But it didn't. It hurt them. And Mommy has spent her whole life trying to fix what he broke. You don't understand yet. You're 6. You won't understand for years. But you'll remember this moment forever. The tremor in her voice, the way she grips your small hands too tight. The sound of the radiator hissing like a warning. What did he make, Mommy? She takes a breath that seems to pull the air from the entire room. Heroin. Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the darkest story of my family and of America itself. My grandfather created heroin. My mother spent her life atoning for it. I nearly died from it, and my daughter is trying to end it. Now, before we go any further, hit that like button and subscribe, but only if you genuinely want to hear the truth. I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to tell you what happened when good intentions met catastrophic consequences. Drop a comment and let me know. Has your family been touched by opioids? Because if you're watching this, if you're my age, mid-60s, maybe older, then statistically the answer is yes. You've lost someone, or you've watched them fade, or maybe like me, you were the one fading. Now dim those lights. Turn on a fan if you need that gentle white noise. Get comfortable, because for the next hour, I'm going to take you through 130 years of history, and at the center of it all is a man who thought he was saving the world. Have you ever wondered who created heroin in the first place? Have you ever asked yourself how a drug could go from doctor's prescription to street epidemic? What if I told you my grandfather's doctor? Heinrich Mortensen was the chemist who believed he'd found a miracle. What if I told you he held the first successful batch in his hands and wept with joy? What if I told you he died knowing what he'd unleashed and it destroyed him? Congratulations. You've just woken up inside my memory. You are Jack Ashford, 6 years old, sitting on a scratchy wool couch in Brooklyn, 1966. The room smells like coffee and mothballs and the particular staleness of old apartments that have seen too much. The radiator clanks. Outside, cars honk on Atlantic Avenue. And your mother is about to tell you the story that will haunt you for the rest of your life. Let's begin where it all began. Not in your living room, but in a laboratory in Lower Manhattan, 1898. Your mother's voice becomes softer now, almost dreamlike as she takes you back to a time before you existed, before she existed, to the moment when everything changed. Your grandfather, Heinrich Mortensen, arrived in New York in 1897. He was 22 years old, fresh from Germany with a degree in chemistry and a heart full of ambition. He believed in science the way some people believe in God. He thought knowledge could defeat suffering. He thought progress was always good. You picture him the way your mother describes him, tall, lean, with pale blonde hair and startling blue eyes. In the one photograph you've seen, he wears a 3-piece suit and wire-rimmed glasses. He looks like someone who has never doubted himself. Someone who believes the future belongs to men like him. Bayer hired him immediately. They were expanding their American operations. They needed brilliant chemists. And Heinrich, your grandfather, he was brilliant. He truly was. The Bayer laboratory occupied the 3rd floor of a brick building near the Brooklyn Bridge. Heinrich arrived each morning at 7 and often didn't leave until midnight. The lab smelled of ether and sulfur and the metallic tang of ambition. Glass beakers lined the shelves. Bunsen burners hissed, and in the corner locked in a cabinet sat the morphine they were trying to improve. Morphine, derived from opium poppies, used for pain since ancient times. Powerful, effective, and devastatingly addictive. The problem, your mother says, was that morphine helped people, but it also trapped them. Patients took it for pain after surgery or for chronic conditions like tuberculosis, and then they couldn't stop. They needed more and more. Families fell apart. People died. The medical community was desperate for something better. Heinrich believed he could create that something better. He worked alongside a team of chemists, but he was the one who made the crucial modification. He took morphine C 17H19NO3 and added 2 alkyl groups. The result was diacetylmorphine, a white crystalline powder that dissolved easily in water. They called it heroin. The name came from the German word heroisch, heroic, because that's what they thought it was, heroic, a hero drug, something that would rescue humanity from pain without the curse of addiction. On August 21st, 1898, your mother continues her voice barely above a whisper now. Your grandfather held the first successful batch. He wrote in his journal, I found it after he died. He wrote, today I believe I have changed the world. Today I have given humanity relief without consequence. Today I am useful to God. You can see him in your mind. Heinrich Mortensen, 23 years old, standing in that laboratory with a vial of white powder in his palm. The afternoon sun streaming through the grimy windows. The city noise a distant hum. And in that moment he believes, truly, genuinely believes, that he has done something magnificent. He has no idea. No idea at all. The testing began immediately. Bayer didn't waste time with excessive caution. This was 1898. The FDA wouldn't exist for another 8 years. Regulations were suggestions. Corporate enthusiasm was not. They started with animals, your mother says. Rabbits mostly. They gave them heroin and watched. The rabbits showed no signs of distress, no addiction behaviors. They seemed better, calmer, healthier. Of course, rabbits don't shoot heroin into their veins. Rabbits don't chase a high. Rabbits don't lie to their families or steal to feed a habit. But in 1898, that kind of nuance didn't seem important. Human trials followed within weeks. The first patient was a woman named Eleanor Whitmore, 62 years old. She'd been coughing for 15 years, a wet, rattling cough that shook her entire body and left her exhausted. Probably tuberculosis, though no one diagnosed it as such. Doctors just called it consumption and prescribed morphine, which helped the cough but left her glassy-eyed and dependent. Heinrich visited her himself. He brought a small bottle of heroin syrup dissolved in sugar water to mask the bitter taste. He explained it carefully. Mrs. Whitmore, this is a new medicine. It will stop your cough better than morphine. And unlike morphine, it won't trap you. You can stop whenever you like. She took the first dose at 3 in the afternoon. By evening, her cough had disappeared. It's a miracle, she whispered. Dr. Mortensen, you've given me my life back. Heinrich went home that night and wept with joy. He wrote to his mother in Germany, I have done what I came to America to do. I have helped someone. For the next 2 months, Eleanor Whitmore took heroin every day. Her cough stayed away. She slept through the night for the first time in years. She gained weight. She smiled. And then she ran out. She went to the pharmacy to refill her prescription. The pharmacist, a man named Pemberton Hale, who'd known Eleanor since she was a girl, noticed something odd. Her hands were shaking. Her pupils were dilated. She kept licking her lips. Eleanor, are you feeling all right? I just need my medicine, Pemberton. Please, I need it today. He gave it to her. She uncapped the bottle right there in the pharmacy and took 3 times the recommended dose. Pemberton Hale would remember that moment for the rest of his life. The desperate speed of her movements. The way her shoulders relaxed the instant the drug hit her system. The way she closed her eyes and smiled, not with happiness, but with relief so profound it looked almost like pain. He thought something is wrong here, but he didn't say anything. Not yet. Your mother pauses. The living room has grown darker. Outside, the street lights are flickering on. You're 6 years old and you don't fully grasp what she's telling you, but you feel it. The dread, the wrongness. What happened to Mrs. Whitmore, Mommy? Clara looks at you with eyes that have seen too much. She couldn't stop, sweetheart. She tried. She really did. But at every time she went more than a few hours without the medicine, she got sick. Shaking, sweating, vomiting. She thought she was dying. So she took more and more. Within 6 months, Eleanor Whitmore was taking 10 times her original dose. Within a year, she'd spent her entire savings on heroin. Her daughter found her one morning unconscious, an empty bottle on the nightstand. She died in 1902, 4 years after that first miraculous dose. The death certificate listed the cause as respiratory failure. No mention of heroin, no mention of Dr. Mortensen, no mention of Bayer. But Heinrich knew. He went to her funeral, your mother says quietly. He stood in the back of the church. He didn't introduce himself to the family, but Eleanor's daughter saw him, and she knew. She walked up to him and said, "You did this. You killed my mother." And your grandfather, he couldn't speak. He just stood there, and then he left. That night, Heinrich Mortensen sat at his kitchen table until dawn. His wife, your grandmother, Catherine, tried to comfort him. "Heinrich, you didn't know. You were trying to help." But he pushed her away. He went to his study and locked the door. And for the first time since creating heroin, he allowed himself to wonder, what have I done? But Bayer didn't wonder. Bayer saw an opportunity. By 1899, heroin was everywhere. It was sold over the counter in pharmacies across America and Europe. You could buy it in syrup form, in tablets, in injectable ampules. Bayer marketed it aggressively, heroin the sedative for coughs. The advertisements showed rosy-cheeked children sleeping peacefully, grateful mothers smiling with relief, elderly men free from the agonies of chronic bronchitis. The tagline appeared in newspapers from New York to San Francisco: safe, effective, non-addictive. You can't make this up. The company that now sells aspirin was once the world's largest heroin dealer, and they did it with a smile and a money-back guarantee. Doctors prescribed it for everything: coughs, colds, asthma, pneumonia, menstrual cramps, anxiety, insomnia, depression. Some physicians recommended it for children as young as 2 months old. It calms them wonderfully, one medical journal reported. The infant sleeps through the night and the parents can finally rest. Of course the infants slept. They were on heroin. Your mother's voice hardens now. This is the part of the story that still makes her angry even decades later, even after all the work she's done to atone for it. Bayer made millions, Jack. Millions. They opened factories in Germany, France, England. They shipped heroin around the world. And your grandfather, he got a raise, a promotion. They called him a genius. They put his name in the company newsletter. Heinrich tried to warn them. In 1899, he wrote a memo to the board of directors. I am concerned about reports of dependence. We should investigate further before expanding production. The response came 3 days later. Dr. Mortensen, your concerns are noted. However, our sales data indicates overwhelming physician and patient satisfaction. We will proceed as planned. He could have quit, he should have quit, but he didn't. He convinced himself it was rare, your mother says, that Eleanor Whitmore was an anomaly, that most people were fine. He needed to believe that, because if he didn't, then he'd have to admit he'd created a monster. So Heinrich Mortensen stayed at Bayer. He refined the production process. He developed new formulations. He trained other chemists. He cashed his paychecks and told himself he was helping people. At night, though, he couldn't sleep. By 1905, the truth was undeniable. Pharmacists reported customers coming in daily, sometimes twice a day for refills. Some people were taking 50 times the recommended dose. Emergency rooms saw a new kind of patient, trembling, sweating, desperate, begging for just one more bottle. Doctors began whispering among themselves, have you noticed the heroin patients? They're not getting better. They're getting dependent. But the word addict didn't exist yet, not in the medical sense. The concept of addiction as a disease was still decades away. So instead, they used euphemisms: habituation, excessive use, nervous disposition, anything but the truth. Pemberton Hale, the pharmacist who'd sold that first refill to Eleanor Whitmore, kept meticulous records. By 1907, he had a list of 47 regular heroin customers. He knew their names. He knew their families. He watched them deteriorate. One was a school teacher named Margaret Flynn. She'd started taking heroin for a persistent cough after a bout of influenza. Within a year, she was gaunt. Her hands shook constantly, and she'd stopped showing up to work. Her sister came to the pharmacy one day, tears streaming down her face. Please, Pemberton, don't sell her anymore. She's destroying herself. But Margaret had a prescription. And in 1907, if you had a prescription, the pharmacist had to fill it. Pemberton Hale filled it. A week later, Margaret Flynn was found dead in her apartment. The empty heroin bottle was on the floor beside her bed. That night, Pemberton went to Heinrich's house unannounced. It was raining, a cold, relentless October rain. Heinrich answered the door in his shirt sleeves, surprised. Pemberton, what are you doing here? The pharmacist didn't wait for an invitation. He pushed past Heinrich into the foyer, dripping water onto the hardwood floor. She's dead, Heinrich. Margaret Flynn, 28 years old, a school teacher, dead. Heinrich's face went pale. I didn't know. You knew. Pemberton's voice was low, dangerous. You've known for years. We all have. But you kept making it. Bayer kept selling it, and people kept dying. The two men stood there in the dim hallway. The rain hammered against the windows. Somewhere in the house, Catherine was putting your mother, baby Clara, to bed. What do you want me to do? Heinrich finally asked. Stop. Just stop. Tell Bayer you made a mistake. Tell them to recall the product. Tell them they'll never listen to me. Then quit. Heinrich looked away. I have a family. I have a daughter. I can't just... Neither could Margaret Flynn. Pemberton Hale left without another word. He walked out into the rain and never spoke to Heinrich Mortensen again. 3 years later, in 1910, Pemberton Hale died. The official cause was a heart attack, but those who knew him said he'd been drinking heavily for years, consumed by guilt. Before he died, he wrote a letter to the New York Times describing the heroin crisis and naming Bayer as the culprit. The newspaper never published it. Bayer was a major advertiser. Your mother shifts in her seat. The story is exhausting her. You can see it in the lines around her eyes, the way her shoulders slump. But she continues, because you asked, and because you deserve to know. Your grandfather tried to leave in 1910. He wrote a resignation letter. I found it among his papers. It said, I can no longer in good conscience contribute to the production of heroin. The evidence of widespread dependence is overwhelming. I urge the company to cease manufacturing immediately. He never sent it. Catherine found the letter on his desk and begged him to reconsider. Heinrich will lose everything. Your reputation, our income. Clara needs stability. Please. So he tore up the letter and he went back to work. But something in him broke. He stopped sleeping, your mother says. At least that's what my mother told me. He'd pace the house at night. He'd go into his study and pull out medical journals reading about morphine addiction, alcohol dependence, opium dens. He was looking for something, proof that it wasn't his fault, maybe, or proof that it was. In 1912, a German physician named Dr. Maximilian Stein published a paper titled The Morphine Substitute Delusion. In it, he documented 63 cases of heroin addiction. He wrote, the claim that heroin is non-addictive is not merely erroneous, it is a dangerous fabrication that has led to untold suffering. Heinrich read the paper 17 times. He underlined entire paragraphs. In the margins, he wrote a single word over and over, yes, yes, yes. He brought the paper to his supervisor at Bayer. We need to issue a correction. We need to warn physicians. His supervisor, a man named Hoffman, barely glanced at the paper. Dr. Mortensen, one study does not constitute proof. We have thousands of satisfied customers. Sales are stronger than ever. People are dying. People die from many things. That doesn't make heroin responsible. Heinrich stood there in the office, the paper trembling in his hands. He thought about Eleanor Whitmore, about Margaret Flynn, about Pemberton Hale's desperate visit in the rain. He thought about quitting again. He thought about his daughter Clara, just 2 years old, playing in the next room. With blocks he'd bought her with his Bayer salary, he stayed. Of course he stayed, because that's what people do, isn't it? They convince themselves that one person can't change a massive system. They tell themselves they're not really responsible. They accept the paycheck and try not to think too hard about where the money comes from. Here's where it gets interesting. Heinrich Mortensen wasn't a villain. He was just a man. A smart, ambitious, well-meaning man who made a terrible mistake and then spent years justifying it because the alternative, admitting what he'd done, was too painful to bear. We'll see that pattern again, and again, and again. In 1914, the United States passed the Harrison Narcotics Tax Act. It didn't ban heroin outright, but it heavily regulated its sale and distribution. Suddenly, you needed more than just a prescription. You needed paperwork, registrations, oversight. Bayer's heroin sales plummeted. By 1920, the company quietly ceased production in the United States. They issued no apology, no acknowledgement of harm. They simply moved on to other products: aspirin, chemical dyes, industrial compounds. And Heinrich Mortensen, he was reassigned, put in charge of a different project, something safe, something that couldn't hurt anyone. But the damage was done. By 1920, an estimated 200,000 Americans were addicted to heroin. Most had started with legitimate prescriptions. Most had trusted their doctors. Most had believed Bayer's promises. And now they were trapped. Your mother looks at you now, 6-year-old Jack, sitting on the couch with wide eyes and a child's incomplete understanding. She reaches out and touches your cheek. Your grandfather lived another 22 years. He died in 1942 when I was 32. By then, he'd stopped talking about heroin entirely. He never discussed his work at Bayer. If anyone asked, he'd change the subject. But I knew. Everyone in the family knew. It was the thing we never mentioned. She pauses. Except once. Right before he died, I sat with him in the hospital. He had lung cancer, probably from years of smoking, trying to calm his nerves. He was barely conscious, drifting in and out. But he opened his eyes, looked right at me, and said, Clara, I thought I was helping. You have to understand, I thought I was doing good. Your mother's voice breaks. And then he said, I'm sorry. Tell them I'm sorry. You don't know who them is, the patients, the addicts, the families, everyone. Your mother wipes her eyes. He died an hour later. And I realized sitting there in that hospital room holding his hand, I realized that his entire life had been defined by one mistake. One brilliant, terrible, irreversible mistake. And now it was my responsibility to do something about it. She looks at you, really looks at you, and you see something in her eyes you've never seen before. Determination, purpose, a kind of holy mission. That's why Mommy works at Hope House, Jack. That's why Mommy helps people who are sick with drugs. Because your grandfather made heroin, and I have to fix what he broke. You're 6 years old. You don't fully understand, but you will. Oh, you will. The room has grown dark now. Outside, Brooklyn settles into its evening rhythm. Car horns, distant sirens, the clatter of the elevated train. Your mother stands, turns on a lamp. The warm light doesn't quite dispel the shadows. Do you have any questions, sweetheart? You have 1,000 questions. But only one makes it to your lips. Was Grandpa a bad man? Clara kneels in front of you. She takes both your hands in hers. No, baby. Grandpa was a good man who did a bad thing. And that's the scariest kind of story, because it means any of us could make the same mistake if we're not careful. If we believe too much in our own goodness. If we trust science more than wisdom. If we forget to ask, what are the consequences? She pulls you into a hug. You feel her heart beating against your chest. Fast. Anxious. Promise me something, Jack. What, Mommy? Promise me you'll always ask about consequences. Promise me you'll always think before you act. Promise me you'll never ever believe that good intentions are enough. You promise because you're 6 and you love your mother and you'd promise her anything. You don't know yet that you'll break this promise. You don't know yet that heroin, your grandfather's creation, your mother's nemesis, will find you too. You don't know yet that this story isn't just history, it's prophecy. But you'll learn. God help you, you'll learn. Let's pause here. Let's freeze this moment. Jack Ashford, 6 years old, holding his mother's hand in a Brooklyn apartment, 1966. Innocent, unaware. The grandson of the man who thought he could defeat pain without consequence. Because here's the thing about family legacies, they don't ask permission. They don't wait for you to be ready. They simply arrive like weather, like fate, like a debt you didn't know you owed. Heinrich Mortensen died believing he'd failed. He was right, but he couldn't have imagined how completely, how catastrophically his failure would echo through the decades. How his great-granddaughter would still be fighting the battle he started. How his grandson, me, Jack the boy on that couch, would nearly die from the very substance he created. The man who invented heroin has a direct descendant who became a heroin addict. If that's not karma, it's the closest thing to it. That night after your mother puts you to bed, you lie awake in the dark. Your small room faces the street. Yellow light from the street lamp slants through the blinds, casting prison bar shadows on the ceiling. You think about your grandfather. You try to imagine him, this tall, blonde German man with wire-rimmed glasses and a three-piece suit. You try to imagine him in a laboratory holding a vial of white powder, believing he'd change the world. You try to imagine what it felt like when he realized he'd changed it for the worse. In your 6-year-old mind, you think, I will never be like him. I will never make a mistake that big. I will be careful. I will be good. Children always think that. Children always believe they'll be different, smarter, better, safer. Children are always wrong, but you don't know that yet. So you close your eyes and drift into sleep, and you dream of laboratories and medicine bottles and a man with sad eyes who can't stop apologizing to people who can't hear him anymore. Outside, Brooklyn breathes. The city never sleeps. Neither do the ghosts. And somewhere in an alley, in a bathroom, in a bedroom with the shades drawn, someone is injecting heroin into their veins. Someone is chasing the high your grandfather promised would come without consequences. Someone is about to learn what Heinrich Mortensen learned too late. There are always consequences. Always. You are 15 years old now. It's 1975. 9 years have passed since your mother told you about Heinrich Mortensen and his terrible creation. 9 years of living with the knowledge that your blood carries a particular kind of shame. The apartment in Brooklyn is smaller than you remember. Or maybe you're just bigger. Your mother is 55 now, her hair shot through with silver, her face mapped with lines that weren't there in 1966. She still works at Hope House every day. 12 hours, sometimes 14. Sometimes she doesn't come home at all. She sleeps on one of the cots in the basement, too exhausted to make the subway journey back to Atlantic Avenue. You resent her for it. God help you, you do. Mom, can you come to my school concert? I have a solo. She looks up from the case files spread across the kitchen table. Her eyes are red-rimmed. When is it, honey? Thursday, 7 o'clock. She closes her eyes. You already know the answer. Jack, I have a group session Thursday night. It's the only time everyone can make it. These people, they're counting on me. I'm counting on you. The words come out sharper than you intended. Your mother flinches. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But you have to understand. I don't want to understand. Your voice cracks, hovering between childhood and something harder. I don't want to hear about Hope House or heroin or people who need you more than I do. I just want my mom. Silence. Your mother looks at you with such profound sadness that for a moment you feel ashamed. But only for a moment, Jack. Forget it. You grab your saxophone case and leave. The door slams behind you with a sound like a gunshot. You don't look back. If you did, you'd see your mother sitting at that kitchen table, head in her hands, crying silently. You'd see the weight of 2 generations pressing down on her shoulders, her father's creation, her son's anger, and the hundreds of people who need her to hold them together when they're falling apart. But you don't look back. You're 15. And at 15, your own pain is the only pain that matters. Let's pause. Let's understand what Hope House became in those 9 years you weren't paying attention. In 1946, when Clara Mortensen Ashford first opened that basement in Harlem, addiction treatment didn't exist. Not really. Not in any meaningful sense. There were sanitariums for the wealthy, places where rich alcoholics and morphine addicts could be locked away until they dried out or died, whichever came first. But for regular people, for black folks in Harlem, and poor whites in the Bronx, and Puerto Ricans in the Lower East Side, nothing. If you were addicted to heroin in 1946, you had 3 options. Quit cold turkey and suffer through withdrawals that felt like dying. Keep using until you actually died, or get arrested and suffer through withdrawals in a jail cell. Clara looked at this landscape and thought, there has to be another way. Hope House started with 10 cots and a coffee maker. By 1955, it had 50 beds, a medical clinic, and a staff of 12. By 1965, it had 3 locations across New York City. By 1975, the year you're 15 and angry and convinced your mother loves strangers more than she loves you, Hope House was treating 200 people at any given time. 200 people whose lives were being slowly strangled by the thing your grandfather created. Clara never forgot that. She carried it like a stone in her chest. Every person she helped was a fraction of atonement. Every life saved was a tiny repayment on an infinite debt. But debt has a cost. And Clara paid it in exhaustion, in missed school concerts, in the slow erosion of her relationship with her only child. She paid it in you. You take the subway to Manhattan, the F train rattling through the darkness beneath the city. Your saxophone case sits between your knees. Inside it, the horn your mother bought you for your 13th birthday. She'd saved for months, setting aside money from her meager salary at Hope House. When she gave it to you, she said, your grandfather believed in science. I believe in healing. But you, Jack, you should believe in beauty. That's how we move forward. You'd hugged her then, you'd meant it. But that was 2 years ago, before the resentment calcified, before every conversation became a negotiation about her time, her attention, her presence. Now you emerge from the subway at West 4th Street and walk toward the village. It's 8 o'clock on a Thursday night. The streets throb with life music spilling from basement clubs, the smell of marijuana and incense and espresso. This is where you come when you want to feel alive, when you want to feel like you're not just the grandson of a monster and the son of a martyr. Here you're just Jack, a kid with a saxophone and a hunger to play. The village vanguard is tucked down a flight of stairs, a cramped triangle of a room that smells like cigarette smoke and spilled whiskey and decades of music soaked into the walls. You're too young to be here legally, but the owner, Max Gordon, has heard you play. He lets you sit in sometimes late at night when the real musicians have finished their sets and the crowd has thinned to hardcore jazz lovers and insomniacs. Tonight, the stage is occupied by a quartet led by a tenor player named Wendell Morris. He's 30, though he looks older, maybe 35, with deep lines around his eyes in gray, starting at his temples. Black, handsome in a haunted way, with hands that move over his horn like he's having a conversation with God. You've watched him play a dozen times. He's everything you want to be: fluid, fearless, lost in the music. You slide into a seat near the back, order a Coke from a waitress who knows better than to ask for ID, and you listen. Wendell is playing body and soul. The melody unfolds like a secret being whispered. His tone is warm, almost vocal. The piano player, a white guy with wire-rimmed glasses and a cigarette dangling from his lips, comps gently behind him. The bass walks. The drums brush. This is church. This is prayer. This is the thing that makes sense when nothing else does. After the set, Wendell notices you. He always does. He waves you over. Jack Ashford, where you been hiding? Around school, you know. Wendell lights a cigarette, squinting through the smoke. Up close, you can see the weariness in his face, the small scars on his hands, the way his eyes don't quite focus like he's looking at something just past you. You still playing, you tap the case. Every day. Good. You got talent, kid. Real talent. Don't waste it. There's something in his voice. A weight. You've heard it before in your mother's voice when she talks about the people at Hope House. The sound of someone carrying too much. You okay, Mr. Morris? He laughs, but there's no humor in it. Yeah, I'm okay. Just tired, you know. This life, it takes a lot out of you. He's not just talking about music. You can feel it. Listen, Jack, you want to sit in next set? We're doing some Mingus. Could use another horn. Your heart jumps to play with Wendell Morris. To stand on that stage and blow your horn in front of people who actually understand what it means. Really. Go warm up. We start in 20. You take your saxophone to the bathroom, the only private space in the club. The bathroom mirror is cracked, the light fluorescent and harsh. You assemble your horn test, the reed run a few scales. Your hands are shaking with excitement. This is it. This is your chance to be something other than Heinrich Mortensen's grandson. To be a musician, an artist, someone who creates beauty instead of destruction. You don't notice the small plastic bag on the back of the toilet until you're packing up. It's clear, filled with brownish powder. Someone left it there. Forgot it maybe, or hid it for later. You know what it is. Of course you know. You've seen enough of it at Hope House, watched enough people destroy themselves chasing it. Your mother has shown you photographs before and after. Healthy people reduced to skeletons. Bright eyes turned dull. You stare at that bag for a long time. Then you leave the bathroom and don't tell anyone. Playing with Wendell Morris is everything you imagined and more. The Mingus tune is Haitian fight song, angular, aggressive, a conversation between horns that feels like an argument and a dance and a prayer all at once. You and Wendell trade fours pushing each other, the rhythm section churning underneath like the engine of a train that's already left the station and isn't stopping for anyone. When it's over, the small crowd applauds. Not politely, genuinely. You see people nodding, smiling. One older woman, maybe 70, wearing a leopard print coat, raises her glass to you. Wendell claps you on the shoulder. Kid's got it, he tells the piano player. Real thing. You float back to your seat. Order another Coke. Feel like you could lift off the ground. This is what you want. This life. This music. This feeling of mattering. The next set, Wendell seems off. He misses an entrance. Plays a phrase that doesn't quite fit. His tone is still beautiful, but there's something hollow underneath. The piano player shoots him a look. The bassist frowns. During the break, you watch Wendell head to the bathroom. He's gone for 10 minutes. When he comes back, something has changed. His eyes are different, brighter, more focused, or maybe less focused. You can't quite tell. He plays the next set perfectly. Better than perfectly. His phrases soar. His time is flawless. He closes his eyes and the music pours out like he's channeling something from another dimension. It's transcendent. It's also, you realize, with a sinking feeling chemical. That bag in the bathroom. Wendell's sudden shift from tired to brilliant. The small scars on his hands that might be needle tracks. Your mother's voice echoes in your head. Heroin makes you feel perfect. That's the trap. You feel perfect until you realize you can't feel anything without it. After the set, Wendell sees you staring. He walks over, sits down heavily. You figured it out, didn't you? You don't answer. Don't need to. Yeah. He lights another cigarette. His hands are steady now, too steady. I know who your mother is, Jack. Clara Ashford. Hope House. Good woman. Trying to save people like me. How long have you? 5 years. Started after a bad breakup. Or maybe the breakup happened because I started. Can't remember anymore. He exhales smoke. You know what the thing is? What nobody tells you, it works. That's the evil genius of it. It actually makes you play better. At first, makes everything better, until it doesn't. So stop, he laughs. It's the saddest sound you've ever heard. Yeah, just stop. You sound like your mother. She could help you. Hope House. I've been to Hope House, kid, twice. Stays never took. I always come back. He looks at you with eyes that have accepted something you can't quite grasp. Some of us don't get saved. Some of us just continue until we don't. He stands, pats your shoulder. You got talent, Jack. Real talent. Don't fuck it up. Don't end up like me. You take the subway home at 2 in the morning. The train is nearly empty, just you, a sleeping homeless man, and a couple arguing in Spanish. You hold your saxophone case like it's the only thing keeping you tethered to the earth. Wendell Morris is dying. You know it as surely as you know your own name. He'll overdose, or his heart will give out, or he'll simply fade away playing smaller and smaller clubs until one night he doesn't show up at all. And your grandfather did that. Heinrich Mortensen, sitting in his laboratory in 1898, convinced he was helping people, created the substance that's killing Wendell Morris 77 years later. You think about that bag in the bathroom. How easy it would have been to take it, to see what Wendell saw, to feel what he felt. You didn't, but the thought was there. That scares you more than anything. When you get home, it's almost 3 a.m. You expect the apartment to be dark, but there's a light on in the kitchen. Your mother sits at the table still awake, still surrounded by case files. She looks up when you enter. Her eyes are red, but not from crying, from exhaustion so profound it's become a permanent state. How was the concert? You'd forgotten you'd told her about it, that she'd chosen Hope House over you, again. Fine. Did you play well? Yeah. She waits. She knows there's more. I met someone tonight, a saxophone player, Wendell Morris. You know him. Something flickers across her face. Recognition, sadness. Wendell, yes, he came through Hope House in 1970. And again in 1973. Couldn't make it stick either time. He's still using. I know. He says some people don't get saved. Your mother closes her eyes. When she opens them, they're wet. He's right, some people don't. I've been doing this for almost 30 years, Jack. I've helped hundreds of people, but I've lost hundreds more. And every single one of them tears a piece out of me. You sit down across from her, really look at her, see what you've been too angry to see. She's destroying herself to trying to fix what can't be fixed, trying to atone for a sin that isn't hers, trying to save everyone because she couldn't save her father from his own guilt. Mom, I know I haven't been there for you the way I should. I know you're angry. You have every right to be. Her voice cracks. But Jack, if I stop, if I give up, then what was the point? What was the point of Grandpa's suffering? What's the point of any of it? You reach across the table. Take her hand. It's cold and thin and trembles slightly. Maybe there doesn't have to be a point. Maybe you've done enough. She shakes her head. I'll never have done enough. The debt is infinite. And that's when you understand your mother is as addicted to atonement as Wendell Morris is to heroin. She's chasing something she can never catch, trying to fill a hole that can never be filled. The thing your grandfather created didn't just kill addicts. It killed him. And it's killing her. And you're terrified, absolutely terrified that it might kill you too. Of course, this is where I should tell you I learned my lesson, that I saw the danger and avoided it, that I made better choices than the generation before me. But this isn't that kind of story. Let me jump forward 3 years. It's 1978. You're 18. You just graduated high school, got accepted to Juilliard on a full scholarship. Your mother wept with joy when the letter came. Jack, this is it. This is your chance. You're going to be something beautiful. You want to believe her. You do. But here's what she doesn't know. For the past year, you've been going to the village 3-4 nights a week, playing with Wendell when he's sober enough to hold his horn, playing with other musicians, some brilliant, some mediocre, all of them circling the same dark star. Jazz in the 1970s is inseparable from heroin. It's been that way since the 40s, since Charlie Parker and Billie Holiday and all the legends who played like gods and died like addicts. There's a mythology around it, a belief that suffering creates art, that you have to touch the darkness to play the light. You know it's bullshit. Your mother has spent your entire life explaining why it's bullshit, but knowledge isn't the same as immunity. One night in July, sticky heat, the city sweating through another summer, you're at a loft party in Soho. Some trumpet players place fifth-floor walk-up windows open to the street noise below. 20 people crammed into a space built for 10. Everyone's high on something, weed pills powder each other. You're in the corner, with your horn playing soft ballads, trying to disappear into the music. A woman sits down next to you. She's maybe 30, dark hair, eyes lined with kohl, wearing a dress that looks like it came from a thrift store and cost more than your rent. You're good, she says. Really good. Thanks. You're also miserable. You stop playing. Look at her. What? I can see it. You play like someone who's carrying something heavy, something you wish you could put down but don't know how. She's right. She's exactly right. But you don't say that. I'm fine. She smiles. It's not unkind. Sure you are. We're all fine. She reaches into her purse, pulls out a small glassine envelope. You ever try this? You know what it is. Of course you know. No. Not asking you to, just saying if you ever want to put down that heavy thing for a few hours. This works. Better than booze. Better than weed. Better than therapy or Jesus or anything else people try. She puts the envelope on the floor between you. Then she stands and walks away. You stare at that envelope for 20 minutes. Then you pick it up. You tell yourself you're just curious, that you'll hold on to it, that understanding what your grandfather created, what your mother fights, what's killing Wendell Morris. Understanding it from the inside will make you a better person. A better musician will give you depth. You tell yourself a lot of things. All of them are lies. Here's where it gets interesting. Because I didn't use it that night, I held on to that envelope for 3 weeks, kept it in my saxophone case wrapped in a piece of sheet music, took it out sometimes and just looked at it. This is what almost killed Grandpa's patience. This is what Mom has spent her life fighting. This is what's killing Wendell. Powder, just powder. Brownish unassuming, could be sugar, could be anything. But it's not anything, it's heroin. Heinrich Mortensen's gift to the world, 3 weeks later, August 15th, 1978. I remember the date because it was the day before I was supposed to move into my dorm at Juilliard. I used it. Not because I wanted to, because I was terrified. Terrified of failing. Terrified of not being good enough. Terrified of becoming my grandfather's mistake personified, the talented boy who couldn't live up to expectations and crashed spectacularly. Terrified of being defined by a legacy I never asked for. So I cooked it like I'd seen people do at Hope House. Mixed it with water in a spoon, heated it with a lighter, drew it into a syringe I'd stolen from my mother's medical supplies. My hands shook so badly I almost couldn't do it. But I did. I found a vein in my left arm, took me 5 tries, left, 4 bruises, and 1 working injection, and I pushed the plunger down. 15 seconds later, warmth flooded through me like I'd been baptized in liquid light. Every muscle in my body relaxed. The weight I'd been carrying, the weight that woman at the party had seen, the weight of being Heinrich's grandson, and Clara's son, and Jack, who had to be extraordinary to justify taking up space in the world, all of it lifted. Gone. Just gone. And I understood. God help me, I understood everything. Why patients in 1898 couldn't stop. Why Wendell Morris kept going back. Why my grandfather wept when the first experiment succeeded, because he thought he'd found a way to make the unbearable bearable. To make suffering stop. To give people peace. He had found that. Exactly that. The problem was it didn't last. The peace was borrowed, and the interest rate was your entire life. But in that moment, lying on my bed in Brooklyn with heroin singing through my veins, I didn't care about problems or interest rates or consequences. I felt perfect. For the first time in my 18 years, I felt absolutely, completely perfect. Of course you know how this ends, because you know me. You know I'm 66 years old now telling this story, which means I survived, which means I got out. But that's part 3, part 4. That's years in pain and nearly dying, and my mother holding my hand in a hospital while I convulsed through withdrawals that felt like my skeleton was trying to escape through my skin. That's later. Right now, in this moment of the story, in this part 2, I'm 18 years old, and I've just discovered that my grandfather's creation works exactly as advertised. It removes pain. It creates euphoria. It makes you feel like the person you always wished you were. The fact that it then traps you, destroys you, kills you, that's a problem for future Jack, present Jack, August 1978. Jack just feels good, better than good. For the first time in his life, present Jack feels like he understands why he exists. I used again the next day, and the day after that. By the time I moved into Juilliard, I was using daily. Not a lot, just enough to feel normal, to feel like I could breathe, to feel like the weight was gone. I told myself I was different, that I understood the risks, that I came from a family that knew addiction intimately, so I'd be able to control it where others couldn't. I told myself Wendell Morris was weak, that the people at Hope House were weak, that my grandfather's patients were weak. I wasn't weak. I was informed. I was careful. I was special. Every addict believes they're special. Every addict is wrong. My mother noticed within a month. Of course she did. She'd spent 3 decades studying the signs, the pinned pupils, the nodding off, the scratching, the sudden need for long sleeves, even in warm weather. She confronted me on a Sunday afternoon. October 1978. I'd come home to do laundry, hoping to avoid her, but she was waiting in the living room. "Jack, sit down." Mom, I have to get back to sit down. I sat. She didn't say anything for a long moment, just looked at me with eyes that had seen this scene play out hundreds of times with hundreds of people, but never with her son. How long? How long what? Don't insult me. How long have you been using? My first instinct was to lie, to act offended, to storm out. But this was my mother, Clara Ashford. She'd devoted her life to understanding addiction. She'd helped hundreds of people get clean, and she'd failed with hundreds more. I couldn't lie to her. 2 months. She closed her eyes. When she opened them, tears spilled down her cheeks. Oh, Jack. Oh, baby, no. It's not a big deal. I have it under control. She laughed. It was bitter and broken. That's what they all say. That's what every single person has said to me before they ended up in Hope House, or in jail, or in a grave. I'm not like them. Yes, you are. Her voice cracked. You are exactly like them, and you're also my son, and you're also the grandson of the man who created the thing that's going to kill you if you don't stop right now. I'm not going to die, Mom. Jesus, you're being dramatic. She stood, walked to her bedroom, came back with a photograph. This is Wendell Morris, last month. I looked at the picture. Wendell was barely recognizable. Gaunt, hollow-eyed, skin pulled tight over bones. He looked 50 years old, not 33. He came to Hope House, third time, weighs 110 pounds, down from 180. He has hepatitis C, his heart is failing. He's 33 years old, Jack, 33, and he'll be dead within a year. I stared at the photograph. This couldn't be Wendell. The man I'd played with had been vibrant, alive, brilliant. He's dying, my mother said quietly, and that's your future if you don't stop. Right now. Today. I should have listened. I should have let her help me. I should have understood that my mother, who'd spent 30 years fighting heroin, who'd watched her father destroyed by guilt over creating it, who'd sacrificed everything to help addicts, knew exactly what she was talking about. But I was 18, and 18-year-olds believe they're immortal. I'm fine, Mom, I promise. It's under control. She looked at me with such profound sadness that I almost broke. Almost. Okay, Jack. Okay, but when you need help, and you will need help, I'll be here. I left, went back to Juilliard, told myself she was overreacting. Wendell Morris died 4 months later. February 1979. Overdose. Found in his apartment 3 days after the fact. He was 33 years old. I went to the funeral. There were maybe 15 people there, fellow musicians mostly. People who'd loved his playing but hadn't been able to save him. My mother was there too. Standing in the back, she saw me. Our eyes met across the church. She didn't say, I told you so. She didn't have to. The grandson of the man who invented heroin becomes a heroin addict. If that's not karma, it's the universe's cruelest joke. But here's the thing about karma, about legacy, about the sins of the grandfather being visited upon the grandson. It's not mystical. It's not fate. It's just patterns. It's genetics and environment and learned behaviors and the particular kind of pain that gets passed down through families like silverware or debt. My grandfather created heroin because he was brilliant and ambitious and believed science could solve suffering. That's not so different from an 18-year-old believing he can use heroin and not get trapped because he's informed and special and different from all the weak people who came before. Same arrogance, different generation, identical result. I used for the next 12 years, 1978 to 1990, lost Juilliard in year 2, lost apartments, jobs, relationships, lost track of time and myself and everything that mattered. My mother never gave up on me, even when I stole from her, even when I screamed at her that she was the problem, that her obsession with Hope House had driven me to drugs in the first place. She just kept saying, when you're ready, I'm here. But that's part 3. Right now, we're still in part 2, still in the middle, still in that terrible place where you know what's coming but can't stop it. Still watching Clara Ashford try to save the world while losing her son. Still watching Jack Ashford convince himself he's different, he's special, he's not like the others. Still watching heroin. Heinrich Mortensen's gift. Heinrich Mortensen's curse claim another generation. Let me tell you what my mother looked like in 1985. She was 65 years old. She'd been running Hope House for 39 years. She'd helped thousands of people. She'd also buried hundreds. And now she was watching her son die in slow motion. Her hair had gone completely white. She'd developed a tremor in her left hand, stress, the doctor said. She barely slept. She barely ate. She worked 16-hour days and came home to an empty apartment because I was out somewhere chasing the high or sleeping it off or doing whatever addicts do when they're too far gone to pretend anymore. She looked like her father, like Heinrich in those last years worn down by guilt and helplessness and the knowledge that the thing you created or the thing you love is destroying everything you touch. One night, I don't remember the date, don't remember much from those years, I came home to find her sitting in the dark. Mom, she didn't turn on the light, just sat there in her chair, hands folded in her lap. I've been thinking about Daddy, she said, about how he felt, watching his creation kill people, being powerless to stop it. I sat down on the couch, high but not so high I couldn't understand she was in pain. I get it now, she continued. He wasn't just guilty about the strangers. He was guilty about us, about what his mistake did to our family. The shame, the weight, the inheritance. Mom, and I really thought if I could just save enough people, if I could just work hard enough, I could break the curse. I could turn his mistake into redemption. She finally looked at me. Even in the dark, I could see her eyes shining. But I can't save you, can I? My own son, the one person I should be able to save. And I can't. I wanted to tell her it wasn't her fault, that I'd done this to myself, that she'd been a good mother, a great mother, and my choices weren't her responsibility. But the words wouldn't come, because I was high. And because, even if I weren't, I didn't know how to articulate the complicated truth that she was both blameless and complicit, that her absence had hurt me, and her presence would have hurt differently, that there was no right answer, and we were all just doing our best with the tools we'd been given. I'm sorry, I said instead. She nodded, like that was answer enough. Me too, baby, me too. You're lying on a bathroom floor in the East Village. It's February 1987. You're 27 years old. The tiles are cold against your cheek. Someone is pounding on the door, shouting your name, but the sound comes from very far away, like you're underwater and they're on the shore. You're dying. You know you're dying because your heart is doing something wrong. Skipping beats, racing, then slowing to almost nothing. Your lips are numb. Your fingertips are blue. The last thing you remember is the needle sliding into your arm and thinking, this batch is different. Stronger. Too strong. The pounding gets louder. The door splinters. You see boots, someone's boots, and then hands are on you, rolling you over. A face hovers above yours. You don't recognize it. Everything is shadow and light, and the sensation of being very, very far from your own body. He's not breathing. Jesus Christ, he's not breathing. Pressure on your chest. Someone's mouth on yours, breathing air into lungs that don't want to work anymore. Your body jerks involuntarily. Once, twice, and then everything goes dark. Let me back up, because you don't just wake up on a bathroom floor dying. That's the culmination, the inevitable endpoint of 1,000 smaller choices, each one bringing you closer to the moment when your body finally says enough. After Wendell Morris died in 1979, I told myself I'd be more careful. I'd use less. I'd use cleaner product. I'd never shoot up alone. All lies. All bargains made with a substance that doesn't bargain. I dropped out of Juilliard in 1980. Not officially at first, just stopped going to classes, stopped practicing, stopped showing up. When they finally expelled me in 1981, my mother wept. Not because of the school, because she knew what it meant. It meant heroin had won. I moved through a series of apartments, each one smaller and grimmer than the last. Williamsburg, Alphabet City, finally a squat in the East Village with no heat and rats in the walls and people who came and went like ghosts. Musicians mostly. Poets, artists, all of us using. All of us convinced we were creating something meaningful while we slowly destroyed ourselves. I still played saxophone. That's the thing about addiction, it doesn't erase your talent. Not right away, it just warps it. I'd play in subway stations for money, play at after-hours clubs where the crowd was too high to notice if you were brilliant or terrible. Play alone in my room at 3 a.m., nodding off mid-phrase. The music became smaller, tighter, desperate, like I was trying to compress all the pain and shame and fear into a single note and blow it out of my body through the horn. It didn't work. My mother came looking for me every few months. She'd heard through someone who heard from someone else where I was living. She'd show up with groceries, clean clothes, pamphlets about Hope House. Jack, please, let me help you. I don't need help. Yes, you do. Baby, you're killing yourself. Then let me kill myself in peace. The cruelest thing about addiction is what it does to the people who love you. It turns you into someone who says things like that. Someone who weaponizes their own self-destruction. Someone who knows exactly which words will hurt most and uses them anyway. My mother would leave the groceries, leave her number, leave the door open, and I'd use the groceries to trade for drugs. Here's what 12 years of heroin use looks like on a body. Your teeth fall out, not all at once. One by one, crumbling from neglect and the way heroin dries your mouth and makes you grind your jaw. By 1985, I'd lost 4 molars and both front incisors. I smiled with my mouth closed. Your veins collapse. Every injection leaves scar tissue. Eventually, you run out of good veins in your arms and start hitting your hands, your feet, your neck. I had track marks from wrist to shoulder, a roadmap of desperation. Your weight drops. Heroin suppresses appetite. Food becomes an afterthought. By 1987, I weighed 130 pounds. I'm 6 feet tall. I look like a skeleton wearing a costume of skin. Your mind fragments. Memory becomes unreliable. Time becomes fluid. You can't remember if something happened yesterday or last year. You can't remember your mother's birthday or your own age or whether you've eaten today. But you always remember where you last got high. Always remember where to score. Always remember the feeling, that warm, perfect feeling, and how much you'd do to feel it again. Anything. You'd do anything. The bathroom floor incident wasn't my first overdose. It was my fourth. The first was in 1983. Alone in my apartment. Woke up 12 hours later, disoriented but alive. Told myself it was a fluke. Bad batch. Wouldn't happen again. The second was in 1985, at a party in someone's loft. Someone called 911. I woke up in a hospital with my mother sitting beside the bed, her face gray with exhaustion and terror. "You have to stop," she said. "Jack, you have to stop or you're going to die." "I know." "Then stop." "I can't." And that was the truth. The simple, horrible truth. I couldn't stop. Not because I didn't want to, but because wanting wasn't enough. The addiction had roots deeper than will, deeper than love, deeper than self-preservation. My mother held my hand. "Then let me help you. Come to Hope House. We have a bed. We have methadone. We have people who've been where you are." They pulled my hand away. "I'm not ready." That's addict speak, for I'm not done destroying myself yet. The third overdose was in 1986, in a car. The dealer who sold me the stuff found me slumped over the steering wheel, lewd-lipped, not breathing. He dragged me onto the sidewalk and drove away. A passerby called for help. I woke up in an ambulance. They asked my name. I gave them a fake one. Didn't want my mother to find out. She found out anyway. She always did. And now it's February 1987, and I'm on that bathroom floor, and this is the fourth time I've crossed the line between high and dead. This is the time that should be the last time. Except it isn't, because someone I'll never know who performed CPR, because someone called 911, because the paramedics arrived in time, because my heart, despite everything I'd done to it, decided to keep beating. I woke up in Bellevue Hospital, restrained to a bed. My mother was there. Of course she was there. Always there, no matter how many times I told her to leave me alone. She looked like she'd aged a decade overnight. Her white hair was wild. Her eyes were hollowed out with sleeplessness and fear. But when she saw me wake up, saw my eyes focus, she crumpled forward and sobbed with a sound I'd never heard before. The sound of a mother who's been waiting for her child to die and has just been granted a reprieve. "Jack, oh God, Jack." I wanted to tell her I was sorry, that I'd try harder, that this time would be different. But I was going into withdrawal. Already I could feel it starting, the cold sweat, the trembling, the sensation of my skeleton trying to vibrate out of my skin. And all I could think about was getting out of this hospital and getting more heroin, because the alternative was feeling everything I'd been running from for 9 years. "Mom." "No." Her voice was steel. "No, you don't get to talk. You get to listen." She pulled her chair closer to the bed, took my hand in both of hers. They were cold, shaking. "I have watched my father die from guilt. I have watched hundreds of people die from heroin. I have spent 41 years trying to atone for something I didn't do. And I will not watch you die too. Mom, I can't." "You can, you will. Because if you don't, I'm done. Do you hear me? I'm done. I will not stand at your funeral and listen to people say what a waste it was. I will not spend the rest of my life wondering if there was something else I could have done. I have given you everything, and now you have to give me something back." I'd never heard her talk like this. Never heard this edge of fury beneath the compassion. "What do you want?" "I want you to come to Hope House, right now, today. I want you to commit to the program, and I want you to understand something. This is your last chance, not because I don't love you, but because I can't watch you kill yourself anymore. It's killing me too." The restraints bit into my wrists. My body was starting to hurt everywhere, bones, muscles, skin. The withdrawal was coming and it would be bad. Worse than the previous times because I'd been using more, using longer, using until my body had forgotten how to function without heroin. I thought about my grandfather, Heinrich Mortensen, sitting in his study reading about the people dying from his creation, unable to stop the machine he'd set in motion. I thought about my mother, Clara Ashford, spending her entire adult life trying to fix what her father broke, sacrificing everything, and now watching her son become another casualty. I thought about Wendell Morris, about Eleanor Whitmore, about all the people who'd taken that first dose thinking they could control it, manage it, stop whenever they wanted. And I thought, I am not special. I am not different. I am just another addict. And if I don't stop now, I will die. Maybe not today, maybe not this year, but soon. Okay, I whispered. Okay, Mom, I'll go. She closed her eyes, tears streamed down her face. Thank you. Thank you, baby. Thank you. Hope House in 1987 occupied 3 connected brownstones in Harlem. My mother had expanded it over the decades, adding medical facilities, counseling rooms, a methadone clinic. It could house 60 people at capacity. I became number 61. The first 72 hours are what they call acute withdrawal. That's a clinical term for hell. Your body, which has spent years adjusting to the presence of heroin, suddenly has to learn how to function without it. And it doesn't do so gracefully. Imagine the worst flu you've ever had. Multiply it by 10, add bone-deep pain, uncontrollable diarrhea, vomiting, shaking so violent you can't hold a cup of water. Add anxiety that makes you want to crawl out of your skin. Add depression so profound you can't remember why you wanted to live in the first place. Now stretch that out for 3 days. That's acute withdrawal. I lay on a cot in a small room that smelled of disinfectant and other people's suffering. A nurse checked on me every 2 hours. My mother came by once each day, but didn't stay long. She had other patients, other people who needed her. And also I realized later she needed to maintain professional distance, needed to treat me like any other addict, not like her son. Because if she gave in to being my mother instead of my counselor, she'd break. On the 3rd day, a man came to see me. He was maybe 60, black with graying hair and calm eyes. He sat in the chair beside my cot and didn't say anything for a long time. Just sat there while I shook and sweated and occasionally vomited into the bucket beside the bed. Finally, he spoke. My name is Lennox Wright. Your mother saved my life in 1946. I was her first patient at Hope House. I tried to focus on him through the haze of withdrawal. Lennox Wright, I'd heard the name. My mother talked about him, sometimes her first success story. That was 41 years ago, he continued. I've been clean ever since. I work here now. I help people like you. People like me, I echoed. My voice was raw from vomiting. Addicts, people who thought they could control it, people who learned they couldn't. He leaned forward. Your mother asked me to talk to you because she thought you might listen to me in a way you can't listen to her. Because I don't have the complication of loving you. I can just tell you the truth. What truth? That you're not special. That your understanding of heroin doesn't protect you from heroin. That being Heinrich Mortensen's grandson just means you carry an extra weight, not an immunity. And that if you walk out of here before you're ready, you will die. Maybe not tomorrow, but soon. It was almost exactly what my mother had said. But coming from Lennox, from someone who'd been in my place, who'd survived it, hit different. How did you stop? I asked. I didn't. Not all at once. I stopped 100 times, 1,000 times. I vacillated. Every day I stop. Every day I make the choice not to use. Some days that choice is easy. Some days it's the hardest thing I've ever done. He stood. You're going to be here for a while, months probably. You're going to hate it. You're going to want to leave. You're going to convince yourself you're fine. You've learned your lesson. You can handle it now. And that's when you need to remember you can't. None of us can. The drug is stronger than any individual will. The only thing stronger than the drug is community. People who've been where you are. People who understand. He walked to the door, then turned back. Your grandfather made heroin because he believed in the power of chemistry. Your mother fights it because she believes in the power of healing. I'm clean because I believe in the power of other broken people holding each other up. He left. I lay there shaking and sweating and thought about what he'd said. You're not special. For 9 years, I'd convinced myself I was. That I was different from the desperate people at Hope House. That I was managing my addiction, controlling it, using it as a tool rather than letting it use me. All lies. I was just another addict. Another person who thought they could dance with the devil and not get burned. And admitting that, truly admitting it, was somehow both the most humiliating and the most liberating thing I'd ever done. The acute withdrawal phase passed. Days 4 through 7 were better. Not good, but better. The physical symptoms eased. The psychological ones intensified. This is when most addicts leave. When the worst of the physical pain is over and they think I've suffered enough. I've learned my lesson. I can go back to my life now. They can't. The relapse rate within the first week is over 90%. My mother knew this. She'd seen it hundreds of times. So on day 8, she enrolled me in the Full Hope House program. 60 days minimum. Methadone to ease the chemical dependence. Group therapy every day. Individual counseling twice a week. Job training. Medical treatment for the damage I'd done to my body. I resented it. God, I resented it. Being treated like a patient instead of a person. Having to ask permission to leave the building. Sharing a room with 3 other men, all of us in various stages of recovery, all of us smelling like withdrawal and desperation. But I stayed because my mother had said it was my last chance. And because some small, stubborn part of me, the part that used to believe in music and beauty and the possibility of being something other than a cautionary tale, wanted to live. Group therapy was held in a large room on the 2nd floor. Folding chairs arranged in a circle. 15 people rotating, cast depending on who'd recently arrived or left. A counselor named Marcus, recovered addict himself, 10 years clean, facilitated. The first time I had to speak, I thought I'd vomit. Tell us your name and how long you've been using. Jack Ashford, 9 years. And why are you here? Because my mother threatened to cut me off. Because I overdosed 4 times. Because I'm tired. Because I'm scared. Because I don't know who I am without heroin and I'm terrified to find out. Because I almost died. Marcus nodded. Most of us are here for that reason. Death got close enough to touch. Some of us had actually touched, we died and came back. Anybody here have that experience? 4 hands went up. 4 people who'd been clinically dead. 4 people who'd been given a second chance they probably didn't deserve, but got it anyway. Jack, you're Heinrich Mortensen's grandson, Clara's son. How does that feel? Every eye in the room turned to me. They all knew. Of course they knew. This was Hope House, the place built on Clara Ashford's mission to atone for her father's creation. It feels like carrying a debt I can't repay. You using your grandfather's creation, was that rebellion? Curiosity, destiny? I thought about that. Thought about the night I first used the woman at the party handing me that envelope. Had I been curious about what Heinrich had made? Had I been trying to understand him? Or had I just been a scared 18-year-old looking for relief and finding it in the worst possible place? I don't know, maybe all of those things, or none of them. Maybe it doesn't matter why. Maybe it just matters that I did. Marcus smiled. It was sad and knowing. That's the first honest thing you've said. Welcome to Hope House, Jack. You're going to hate it here, and it's going to save your life. He was right. I hated it. I hated the structure. Wake up at 6, breakfast at 7, group therapy at 9, individual counseling, at 11, job training in the afternoon, dinner at 6, lights out at 10. I hated sharing a room with strangers. I hated the methadone, which kept the worst of the cravings at bay, but left me feeling hollowed out, like I was going through life behind a pane of glass. Most of all, I hated confronting myself, because that's what recovery is. It's not about the drug. The drug is just the symptom. Recovery is about looking at all the reasons you used in the first place, all the pain you were running from, all the failures and fears and broken pieces you tried to drown in chemicals. In individual counseling, my therapist, a woman named Dr. Patricia Reynolds, 60 years old with steel gray hair and eyes that saw through every lie, forced me to talk about things I'd spent 9 years avoiding. Tell me about your relationship with your mother. It's fine. Jack, your mother runs this facility. You used heroin for 9 years while she spent every day fighting it. That's not fine. That's complicated. I looked out the window, Harlem in spring, trees budding, people walking to work. A normal world I'd been disconnected from for so long, I didn't know how to rejoin it. I was angry at her. Why by name? Because she was never there. Because she cared more about strangers than about me. Because I wanted a mother and I got a saint. And using heroin was what punishment for her. No, yes, maybe, I don't know. Dr. Reynolds leaned back in her chair. You know what I think? I think you used heroin because it worked. Because it did exactly what it promised. It made you feel better. And then you kept using it because stopping meant feeling all the things it had been helping you avoid. Your anger, your loneliness, your fear that you'd never be good enough to justify the sacrifices your mother made. She was right. I hated that she was right. My grandfather created heroin to help people. My mother fought it to save people. What do I do? How do I exist between those two legacies? You choose your own legacy. You decide who Jack Ashford is, separate from Heinrich Mortensen and Claire Ashford. You become yourself. I don't know who that is. Then you figure it out. That's what recovery is. Becoming yourself for the first time. Of course, this is the point in the story where I should tell you I had a breakthrough, that I embraced recovery, worked the program, and emerged transformed, healed, ready to rejoin the world as a functional human being. But recovery isn't a straight line. It's a spiral. You go around and around, passing the same demons from different angles, learning the same lessons at deeper levels. I left Hope House after 40 days, against medical advice, against my mother's pleas, because I convinced myself I was ready, that I'd learned enough, that I could manage my life without 24 hours supervision. I relapsed within a week. The thing about relapse is it's not a failure of willpower. It's a failure of context. You return to the same neighborhood, the same people, the same patterns. And your brain, which has spent 9 years associating those patterns with heroin, lights up with craving so intense, it feels like physical pain. I scored from my old dealer, used in the same bathroom where I'd overdosed 3 months earlier. And the moment the drug hit my system, I felt two things simultaneously. Relief so profound I wanted to weep, and disgust so complete I wanted to die, because I'd thought I was different. I'd thought 40 days in Hope House had fixed me. I'd thought understanding addiction meant I could overcome it. I'd thought I was special. I wasn't. I was just another addict proving the statistics right. My mother found me 2 days later. I was back in my squad in the East Village High and ashamed and convinced I'd destroyed my last chance. She didn't yell, didn't cry, just looked at me with exhausted resignation. Get up, we're going back. Mom, I can't, I failed, Get up, Jack. Something in her voice, steel I hadn't heard before. The voice of a woman who'd spent 41 years fighting the same battle and refused to surrender even when surrender made sense. I got up. We took a cab back to Harlem in silence. When we arrived at Hope House, Lennox was waiting at the door. Welcome back, he said. No judgment, no surprise, just the calm acceptance of someone who'd seen this before. I'm sorry, don't apologize, just come inside. That night in group therapy, Marcus asked me to share. I relapsed, I said. I thought I was ready. I wasn't. He nodded. Anybody else here relapse after their first treatment? 12 hands went up. 12 out of 15 people. Recovery isn't linear, Marcus said. Relapse doesn't mean failure. It means you're human. It means the disease is strong. And it means you have to try again. What if I keep failing? Then you keep trying. That's all any of us can do. Try until trying works. I stayed at Hope House for 6 months that time. Full program. I stopped fighting it, stopped resenting it, stopped trying to prove I was different or special, or somehow exempt from the rules that governed everyone else. I just tried. Recovery, when it finally took, was quieter than I expected. There was no dramatic moment, no sudden transformation, just a slow, gradual return to myself. I started playing saxophone again, not for money or recognition, just for the feeling of making something beautiful. Marcus arranged for me to play at a recovery center across town, therapeutic music for other addicts. The first time I played Body and Soul, Wendell Morris's favorite tune, I cried through the entire performance. The audience understood. They'd all lost someone, or they'd almost lost themselves, or both. My mother and I began talking, really talking. Not mother to patient or counselor to addict, but two people who'd been wounded by the same legacy trying to figure out how to heal. I'm sorry I wasn't there for you, she said one afternoon. We were in her office drinking terrible coffee from the Hope House pot. You were fighting a war, I get that now. Still, you needed a mother, not a crusader. Maybe I needed both. Maybe you did the best you could with an impossible situation. She looked at me with eyes that had seen too much suffering to believe in easy redemption. But maybe, just maybe, we're starting to believe in the possibility of enough. Your grandfather died thinking he'd failed completely, but he gave me a purpose. And through me, you're alive. That's not nothing. It's not enough to balance the scale. No, but maybe it's enough to matter. We sat in silence. Outside, Harlem moved through its afternoon rhythms, people coming and going from Hope House, lives being saved or lost or held in temporary balance. I want to work here, I said. When I'm ready, I want to help. My mother's face crumpled. She tried to hide it, but I saw. Are you sure this place? It's hard, Jack. It's watching people die. It's seeing yourself in every new patient, It's never feeling like you've done enough. I know, but I also know I can't play saxophone forever. And I can't pretend I am not Heinrich Mortensen's grandson. So maybe I can turn that into something useful? She reached across the desk, took my hand. He'd be proud, Grandpa. He died thinking his legacy was only destruction. But if you do this, if you help people fight the thing he created, that's redemption he never got to see. Is it enough? I don't know, but it's something, and sometimes something is all we get. I left Hope House in August 1990. 2.5 years after I'd entered, I was 30 years old. I'd lost my 20s to heroin, lost friends, opportunities, versions of myself I'd never meet now. But I was alive. I moved into a sober living house in the Bronx, got a job at a music store, started attending Narcotics Anonymous meetings 3 times a week, slowly, carefully rebuilt a life that didn't revolve around the next high, and I started training to become an addiction counselor. The irony wasn't lost on me. Heinrich Mortensen's grandson, helping people recover from Heinrich Mortensen's creation. 3 generations, one family, one endless battle with the same substance. But maybe that was the point. Maybe the only way to break a curse was to face it directly, to transform inherited guilt into active healing, to take the worst thing your family ever did and spend your life trying to make it right. In 1993, I got my counseling license. In 1994, I started working at Hope House part-time. By 1995, I was full-time staff, working alongside my mother, helping the same population she'd spent 5 decades serving. My first patient was a 19-year-old named Marcus, not the counselor, different Marcus who reminded me painfully of myself at 18. Brilliant, talented, convinced he could control his use because he understood the risks. I told him my story, all of it. The bathroom floor, the relapses, the years lost, the slow, difficult climb back to something resembling a life. You think you're special, I said. You think your intelligence protects you. It doesn't. The only thing that protects you is admitting you're not special, that you're exactly like every other addict who thought they could manage it. He looked at me with young eyes that hadn't accepted their own mortality yet. Did that work for you? Admitting you weren't special. Eventually, after I almost died 4 times. What if I'm smarter than you? I laughed, sad and knowing, the same laugh I'd heard from Marcus the counselor 5 years earlier. Then you'll figure out faster that smart doesn't matter. Only honest matters. And the honest truth is, heroin is stronger than you, than me, than anyone. The only thing stronger is other people who've survived it holding you up when you can't stand on your own. He didn't believe me, not yet, but he would, they always do. My mother died in November 1995, 85 years old, heart attack. Quick and relatively painless, which was a mercy given how much pain she'd witnessed in her life. Her funeral was held at the Baptist church that had housed the first Hope House in 1946. Hundreds of people came, former patients, staff members, community leaders, all of them with stories about how Clara Ashford had saved them or their loved ones. I gave the eulogy. Standing at the pulpit, looking out at all those faces, I thought about what to say. How to capture a life defined by inherited guilt and chosen redemption. My mother spent her entire adult life atoning for her father's mistake. Heinrich Mortensen created heroin. Clara Mortensen Ashford spent 50 years fighting it. She helped thousands of people. She saved countless lives. But she never felt like it was enough. Because the debt was infinite. Because her father's creation didn't stop killing people just because she dedicated her life to healing them. I paused. Looked at the coffin. Plain pine. She'd requested no fancy funeral, no waste. I used to think that was tragic, that she'd spent her life trying to repay a debt that wasn't hers. But I understand now. She wasn't trying to erase what her father did. She was trying to prove that one person's catastrophic mistake doesn't have to define a family forever. That legacy can be transformed. That redemption is possible, even when forgiveness isn't. My voice broke. She saved my life, multiple times. And through me, she's saving others. That's not erasure, that's not balance. But it's something, and she taught me that sometimes something is all we get. And sometimes, just sometimes, something is enough. I sat down. The church was silent except for quiet weeping. And I thought, she's free now. Free from the weight she carried her whole life. Free from Heinrich's shadow. Free from the endless battle with a substance that couldn't be defeated, only managed one person at a time for as long as we all kept fighting. I hope she was with her father. I hope they'd finally found peace. I hope they could see that their story, tragic as it was, had become something larger. A family that had created and fought and survived heroin. 3 generations, 100 years. And we were still here. Broken, scarred, but still here. Been clean for 5 years. I work at Hope House full-time, and I'm about to meet someone who will change everything. Her name is Lisa Morrison. She's a recovering addict, clean for 3 years. She volunteers at Hope House on weekends, helping in the kitchen, organizing donations. We've exchanged maybe 20 words total over 6 months. But there's something about her. A quietness, a strength that draws me. One Saturday in December, she asks if I want to grab coffee after her shift. We sit in a diner on 125th Street. Steam rises from our cups. Outside, Harlem prepares for Christmas. Lights strung across storefronts. The smell of roasted chestnuts from a street vendor. I know who you are, Lisa says. I know who your grandfather was. Everyone at Hope House knows. I brace myself. This is usually where the conversation turns awkward, where people either treat me like I'm personally responsible for heroin or like I'm some kind of redemption story they can feel good about. But Lisa doesn't do either. My grandmother died from his creation, 1952. She was 48 years old, started using it for back pain after she fell at work. Doctor prescribed it. Within a year, she was gone. I don't know what to say. I'm sorry seems inadequate. It's not your fault, Lisa continues. That's what I wanted to tell you. I've watched you at Hope House. I've seen how hard you work, how much you care, and I wanted you to know what your grandfather did, that's not on you. What your mother did is spending her whole life trying to fix it. That was her choice. But you get to choose who you are. Something in my chest loosens, a knot I didn't know I'd been carrying. Who do you think I am? She smiles. It's the first time I've seen her really smile. I think you're someone who turned his biggest wound into his life's work. That's not atonement, that's transformation. We get married in 1997. Small ceremony at City Hall. Lennox Wright is my best man. A handful of people from Hope House as witnesses. No fancy reception, just coffee and pie at that same diner on 125th Street. Our daughter Eliza is born in 1999. We name her after Eleanor Whitmore's daughter, the woman who confronted my grandfather at the funeral, the woman who said, "You did this," because we want our daughter to know the truth. All of it. The creation, the devastation, the slow climb towards something resembling redemption. When Eliza's old enough to understand, we'll tell her everything. But the world doesn't wait for us to finish processing our family history. While I'm learning how to be a father, while I'm working at Hope House, while I'm trying to build something stable and good, a new crisis is brewing. It starts in 1995. A pharmaceutical company called Purdue Pharma releases a drug called OxyContin. It's an opioid, a synthetic version of the same alkaloids found in opium poppies, the same family of drugs that includes morphine and heroin. The marketing is aggressive. Purdue sends sales reps to doctors' offices across America. They host conferences, they fund studies, and they make a claim that makes my blood run cold when I first hear it. OxyContin is less addictive than other opioids. Patients can take it for chronic pain without worrying about dependence. I'm sitting in my office at Hope House when I read the first article. It's 1996. The phone rings constantly, more patients, more families looking for help. But I can't stop staring at the words on the page. Less addictive, safe for long-term use, revolutionary pain management. I've heard this song before. My mother heard it. My grandfather sang it. I pick up the phone, call a reporter at the New York Times, explain who I am, tell them what I see coming. Mr. Ashford, with all due respect, OxyContin has been rigorously tested. The FDA approved it. Purdue has scientific data. So did Bayer, I interrupt. In 1898, they had data too. They had enthusiastic doctors. They had patients who swore it was a miracle. And 20 years later, 200,000 Americans were addicted. That was different. Medicine has advanced. The medicine has advanced. Human biology hasn't. Opioids are opioids. And if you tell people they're safe, they'll believe you until they can't stop. The reporter thanks me for my time. The article never runs. Over the next 5 years, I watch it happen again. Doctors prescribe OxyContin for back pain, knee pain, dental work. Patients take it as directed, and then they can't stop. By 2000, emergency rooms are seeing a new wave of opioid overdoses. By 2005, the crisis is undeniable. By 2010, it's epidemic. People who would never touch street heroin, middle-class mothers, construction workers, teenagers after wisdom tooth surgery are addicted to prescription pills. And when the pills become too expensive or too hard to get, they turn to heroin because heroin is cheaper, more available, and it does the same thing. My daughter Eliza is 11 years old in 2010. She's brilliant, curious about everything. She wants to know how things work, plants, machines, the human body. One night she asked me about my scars. The track marks on my arms faded but still visible in certain light. Daddy, what are those? Lisa and I exchange a look. We knew this conversation would come. We've been preparing for it. Those are from a long time ago when Daddy was sick. I was addicted to a drug called heroin. What's heroin? It's a medicine that was invented a long time ago by your great-great-grandfather. He thought it would help people, but it hurt them instead. And when I was young and scared I used it, and it made me sick for a very long time. Eliza processes this. She's quiet for a moment. But you're better now. Yes, baby, I'm better now. It took a long time and a lot of help from a lot of people, including Grandma Clara, who you never got to meet. And that's why you work at Hope House to help other people get better. Yes, she nods, like this makes perfect sense. When I grow up, I want to be a doctor, and I want to find a way to help people without making them sick. Lisa and I don't cry until after we tuck her in. Eliza keeps that promise. She excels in school, gets into Columbia University, studies biology, then medicine, specializes in addiction medicine and pharmacology. By the time she's 30, she's Dr. Eliza Ashford, conducting research at Mount Sinai Hospital. Her focus genetic markers for addiction susceptibility. Why do some people use opioids and walk away while others become trapped after the first dose? She discovers that it's partly genetic. There are variations in opioid receptors and dopamine regulation in the way certain brains process reward and pain. It doesn't make addiction inevitable, but it makes some people more vulnerable. And if you can identify those people, if you can test for these markers, you can warn them. You can offer alternative pain management. You can prevent the trap before it closes. In 2020, she publishes her findings in the New England Journal of Medicine. The paper makes waves. It doesn't solve the opioid crisis, but it offers something new: precision medicine, personalized addiction prevention. I'm 60 years old when I read her paper, sitting in the same office at Hope House where I've worked for 25 years. And I realized this is how the curse ends, not with erasure, not with balance, but with transformation. Heinrich created the problem. Clara fought the problem. I survived the problem, and Eliza is solving the problem. 4 generations, 122 years. One family's reckoning with heroin, but there's still unfinished business. In 2019, Purdue Pharma faces a reckoning of its own. Thousands of lawsuits from families, states, cities, all claiming the same thing: Purdue lied about OxyContin's addiction potential. They marketed it aggressively. They downplayed the risks. They created an epidemic for profit. It sounds familiar. In 2021, I'm asked to testify. Not in court, the case settles before trial, but in a special hearing. A chance for victims and families to speak directly to the Sackler family, Purdue's owners. I'm 61 years old. I haven't used heroin in 31 years. I've helped hundreds of people get clean. I've lost hundreds more. And now I'm sitting in a room with the people who did what my grandfather did, but with knowledge, with intent. When it's my turn to speak, I look at them directly. My name is Jack Ashford. My grandfather, Dr. Heinrich Mortensen, created heroin in 1898. He believed it was safe. He believed it was non-addictive. He was wrong, and it destroyed him. He spent the last 20 years of his life consumed by guilt, knowing he had unleashed something he couldn't stop. My mother, Clara Ashford, spent 50 years trying to atone for what he did. She opened Hope House in 1946. She helped thousands of people. She died believing she'd never done enough. I am a recovering heroin addict. I nearly died 4 times. I lost 12 years of my life, and only through luck and my mother's refusal to give up on me did I survive. My daughter is Dr. Eliza Ashford. She's a researcher. She's trying to prevent what happened to me from happening to others. 4 generations of my family have been defined by heroin, by one man's mistake in 1898. But here's the difference between my grandfather and you. He didn't know. He believed his own research. He believed the testing. And when he realized the truth, it broke him. You knew. You had 100 years of data about opioid addiction. You had warnings from doctors, from researchers, from people like me. And you ignored them because profit mattered more than lives. My grandfather's mistake was made in good faith. Yours was made in bad faith. And that's the difference between tragedy and crime. The room is silent when I sit down. The Sacklers say nothing. Their lawyers say nothing. 2 months later, Purdue Pharma declares bankruptcy. The Sackler family agrees to pay billions in settlements. They're barred from the pharmaceutical industry. It's not enough. It will never be enough. But it's something. It's 2026 now. I'm 66 years old. I've been clean for 36 years. I still work at Hope House. I'm the executive director now, the position my mother held until she died. Eliza's 36. She's married. She has a daughter, my granddaughter, Clara. Named after my mother, 5 years old, bright, curious, loved. We're sitting in my office on a Saturday afternoon, 3 generations of the Ashford family. Eliza brought Clara to see where I work to understand what we do. Clara asked me, "Grandpa, why do you help sad people?" I look at Eliza. She nods. Go ahead. A long time ago, my grandpa, your great-great-great-grandfather, made something that hurt a lot of people. He didn't mean to. He was trying to help. But sometimes even when we're trying to help, we can make mistakes, big mistakes. And ever since then, our family has been trying to fix that mistake. Your great-great-grandma Clara did it. I do it. Your mommy does it with her science, and maybe one day you'll do it too, in your own way. What did he make? A medicine called heroin. Is that a bad medicine? It's complicated. It can help people who are in pain, but it can also trap them, make them sick. And we have to be very, very careful with it. Clara thinks about this. I don't want to make mistakes that hurt people. None of us do, sweetheart, but sometimes we will. The important thing is what we do after. Do we run away from the mistake, or do we spend our lives trying to make it right? Make it right, she says firmly. That's my girl. After they leave, I sit alone in my office. The same office my mother worked in for 50 years. The walls are covered with photographs, patients who got clean, families reunited, Hope House staff from different decades. And in the corner, a framed photograph from 1898, Heinrich Mortensen in his laboratory holding a vial. Young, hopeful, believing he was about to change the world. He did change the world, just not the way he intended. I think about the question I've carried my whole life. Can one family's mistake be redeemed? Can 100 years of harm be balanced by 100 years of healing? Or you don't know. But I know this Heinrich created heroin out of hope. Clara fought it out of guilt. I survived it through grace. Eliza studies it through science. And Clara, my granddaughter, will inherit a world where we understand addiction better than we ever have. She'll still have to fight. The battle doesn't end. New drugs, new pharmaceutical companies, new claims of safe and non-addictive. Human nature doesn't change. The desire to escape pain, to feel better, to believe in miracles, that's eternal. But maybe each generation fights a little smarter, sees the traps a little sooner, saves a few more people. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that has to be enough. It's Saturday evening now. The city outside is alive, traffic, voices, music from somewhere down the block. Hope House will open its doors in an hour for the evening group session. 15 people will gather in a circle, tell their stories, hold each other up. I'll be there, like I am every Saturday, like I have been for 26 years, because this is who I am now. Not Heinrich's grandson, not Clara's son, not even a recovering addict, though I'll always be that too. I'm Jack Ashford, and I help people fight heroin, the thing my grandfather created, the thing my mother spent her life fighting, the thing that almost killed me. Some days it feels like Sisyphus pushing a boulder uphill. You save one person, 3 more arrive. You celebrate 1 year clean, you bury someone who relapsed after 10. But some days, some precious days, you see it. A patient who makes it. A family reunited. A life reclaimed from the edge of destruction. And on those days, I think this is what redemption looks like. Not dramatic, not complete, just persistent. Just showing up day after day, year after year, generation after generation. Still fighting, still here. Let me tell you how this story ends, or rather how it doesn't end. Because that's the truth about family legacies and catastrophic mistakes and the fight against addiction. They don't end. They just continue. They evolve. They pass from generation to generation, each one carrying the weight and hopefully lightening it just a little. My grandfather died in 1942, believing he'd failed completely. My mother died in 1995, believing she'd never done enough. I'm 66 years old and I don't know what I believe. Some days I think we've made progress. We understand addiction as a disease now. We have better treatment protocols. We have people like Eliza doing research that might actually prevent the trap from closing in the first place. Other days, I think we've learned nothing. Purdue Pharma repeated Bayer's playbook almost exactly. New synthetic opioids appear every year. The death toll keeps rising. But here's what I know for certain. Giving up is not an option, because the moment we stop fighting, The moment we accept that this is just how it is, we dishonor everyone who came before, everyone who tried, everyone who failed but tried anyway. Heinrich tried to create something good. Clara tried to fix what he broke. I'm trying to save whoever I can. Eliza is trying to prevent the next generation from needing to be saved. And little Clara, my granddaughter, will carry this story into a future I can't imagine. Maybe she'll be a doctor like her mother. Maybe she'll be something else entirely. But she'll know. She'll know that her family carries a particular weight, and she'll choose what to do with it. That's all any of us can do. Choose. It's late now, nearly midnight. The group session ended hours ago. The building is quiet. I'm the last one here, like I often am, checking that all the doors are locked, that the coffee maker is off, that everything is ready for tomorrow. Tomorrow, 15 new people will come through those doors. Some will stay, some will leave, some will get clean, some will die. And I'll be here, because this is what I do. This is who I am. I walk past my mother's photograph on the wall. She's young in this picture, maybe 40, standing in front of the first Hope House building, 1956. She looks tired, but determined. I touch the frame. We're still here, Mom. Still fighting, still trying. I imagine I can hear her voice. That's all I ever asked. I turn off the lights, lock the door, step out into the Harlem night. The city never sleeps. Neither does the fight. But tonight, at least I can rest. Tomorrow we'll start again. And now at the end, let me speak directly to you, the person watching this. The person who spent the last hour with me, listening to the darkest story of my family and of America. If you're my age, 65, 70, maybe older, you remember when doctors were trusted without question, when pharmaceutical companies were assumed to have your best interests at heart, when FDA approved meant absolutely safe. You learned different, maybe through personal experience, maybe by watching people you love struggle, maybe by living long enough to see the same lies told again and again in different packages with different brand names, but always with the same results. You were right to be suspicious. You were right not to trust every miracle cure. You were right to question authority, to read the fine print, to wonder about consequences. And if anyone ever made you feel paranoid or difficult or like you were overreacting, they were wrong. You were right. My grandfather believed the experts. My mother questioned them. I ignored them. And my daughter is becoming one, but with the wisdom of 3 generations behind her. That's progress. Slow, painful, measured in decades and lives rather than quarters and profits. But it's progress. So here we are, 2026, 128 years after Heinrich Mortensen first synthesized heroin. The opioid epidemic has killed more than 1 million Americans. Fentanyl, heroin's deadlier cousin, is everywhere, and the fight continues. But here's what else is true. We have Hope House and hundreds of facilities like it. We have addiction medicine as a medical specialty. We have harm reduction strategies, needle exchanges, safe consumption sites, Narcan in every pharmacy. We have people like Lennox Wright, who got clean in 1946 and worked at Hope House until he died at 95. We have people like my mother who spent 50 years fighting. We have people like me who survived. And we have people like Eliza who are finding new ways to prevent and treat addiction. The curse isn't broken, but it's cracking. Generation by generation, life by life, it's time for me to let you go. Time for you to turn off this video and go about your life. Time for you to sleep if you can. But before you do, I want to leave you with this. If you or someone you love is struggling with opioids, with heroin, with any addiction, it's not your fault. It's not weakness. It's not moral failure. It's a disease, a trap, a lie that pharmaceutical companies and drug dealers have been telling for more than a century. And there is help. It's not perfect. It's not easy, but it's there. Hope House is still here, 90 years after my mother opened those doors. We're still fighting, still helping, still refusing to give up. If you need us, we're here. If you don't need us, but you know someone who does, tell them. Tell them there's a place called Hope House in Harlem. Tell them about a woman named Clara Ashford who spent her life trying to fix what her father broke. Tell them about her son Jack, who nearly died and chose to live instead. Tell them the story, because stories matter. They connect us. They remind us that we're not alone, that other people have been where we are and survived, that survival is possible, that redemption is possible, that even the worst mistakes can be transformed into something that looks, if you squint, if you're patient, if you keep trying for long enough, almost like grace. So tonight, as you lie down to sleep, as your eyes close and your breathing slows, remember this: My grandfather created heroin because he believed in the power of science to defeat suffering. He was right about the first part, wrong about the second. Science is powerful, but it's not enough. You need wisdom too, and compassion, and the humility to admit when you're wrong, and the courage to spend the rest of your life trying to make it right. My family has been trying for 128 years. We're not done yet. We won't be done in my lifetime. Maybe not in Eliza's lifetime, but maybe, just maybe, by the time my granddaughter Clara is my age, the fight will be a little easier. The traps will be a little more visible. The lies will be a little less convincing. That's the hope. That's all we have. And sometimes, just sometimes, hope is enough. Sleep well, friend. Dream of a world where medicine heals without trapping. Dream of a world where pharmaceutical companies tell the truth. Dream of a world where the grandson of Heinrich Mortensen can tell this story as history, not as ongoing tragedy. We're not there yet, but we're trying, and as long as we're trying, there's hope. Good night, and thank you for listening, for bearing witness, for carrying this story forward. It matters. You matter. And if you're fighting your own battle with the thing my grandfather created, you're not alone. You never were. We're here. We're still here, and we're not going anywhere.